It has definitely been a very long time since I purchased an alarm clock or a clock radio. And I know that some of my viewing audience has been pining for clock radio videos. Why aren't you uploading any clock radio videos? What happened to all the clock radios you were buying? I just haven't really seen any that were worth buying. That and prices. We'll get into that in just a few seconds. When I tell you that I paid $6.99 for this particular unit, you will look at me and go, "Dude, it's not even a radio. What's wrong with you?" That is about the going price for clocks and clock radios these days. I don't know what happened. Perhaps it's because they're pricing things based on eBay, or maybe they've decided, ooh, there is all of a sudden demand for these things. Let's raise the prices so we can make more money. Those are about the only things that I can fathom. Because other than that, I ain't got nothing. This was the cheapest clock on the shelf. At $7, being the cheapest, that really does not fill one with a whole lot of confidence. And it's just more example of why I really don't go buying clock radios at the thrift store much longer. But I saw this one there, and I said, you know, that's very interesting. I'll buy that. So you're probably asking yourself right now, Self, how does CP666 justify spending $6.99 on a boring old alarm clock? Well, there are 4 different design aspects that caught my fancy. And we'll talk about all 4 here, starting with the design. I mean, it's just a general wood grain, not a whole lot. You really can't really see much until I flip it on its side. You may have already noted this. It's not a box. It's almost like a squished mailbox, in a way. The mailbox part has been squished up at the top. Or perhaps a train tunnel. Or if you're feeling a little bit less charitable about it, maybe a tombstone. But it's a very interesting design. If you're wondering what it is a Citizen, model number JC-11, electronic desk clock. It uses about 3 watts. There's the file number, made in Hong Kong. It's a very interesting notice here about the high voltage. Go ahead and take a closer look at it. We'll get back to this in a second. We have the typical snooze button, time set, alarm set, and again, we'll get back into what you just saw in a second. Forward and fast forward. What? It's not very common for boring old alarm clocks to have both a fast forward and a forward. Usually the way they're set up is you have an hour and a minute. Look at the bottom here. We have an alarm switch, and what looks like right here, this would be where the alarm is. Let me turn on the video lights. You might stand a little bit better chance of seeing these things. As well as another notice here on the bottom about how you should not open this unit, there's no serviceable parts inside, blah blah blah. You know, the kind of thing that nobody really cares about. Some of you have probably been looking at this display going, is that a vacuum fluorescent display? Why yes. Yes it is. Which is another oddity for a boring old clock. If I turn the video light on again, well, they don't really show up too well, I don't believe. I could see them in person, but I don't think you can see them on the video. If I had night shot, you'd be able to see them a little bit better. But the way that a vacuum fluorescent display works is very simple. It's like a cathode ray tube in that in the front you have a phosphor-coated anode, and at the back you have cathodes in the form of filament heater lines, which energize electrons and cause them to bombard the anode, the phosphor layer, which in turn is what produces this light. The unfortunate thing about these vacuum fluorescent displays is that, well, there's only so many electrons you can release before you simply run out of electrons. It's very simple physics. So you might be able to see it in this one, I don't know. But by the filament heater lines, you've got darker emissions. Now, it's not so much of a problem on this one. This one's actually in fairly good health. I've got some, such as that Sony clock radio over there, where you can barely even see the printing at all. Fairly far gone. In fact, I may replace it with this. But that's the only unfortunate thing I can say about vacuum fluorescent displays. Otherwise, they are very cool pieces of technology. And whenever I see a clock radio or an alarm clock powered by a VFD, I have to entertain thoughts of buying it. Here's a random example of a standard alarm clock. It does not give you any way to control the brightness of the display. And that is an unfortunate tendency of most of these alarm clocks. They don't give you any control over the display brightness, and if they do, it's always a simple high or low switch. Well, again, here's our exception. See that? The electronic dimmer. Turn on the video light, you can see what it is. The light sensor. Watch what happens when I cover up the electronic dimmer with my thumb. So it's got an automatic dimmer based on the brightness level in the room, the ambient brightness. That's a pretty nice feature. Why don't a lot of clock radios have that? If this cheap, old, boring alarm clock can have it. Now, the one unfortunate thing about that is that, as you can see in a bright room, it's going to be running at full brightness. I don't really know how I feel about that, but of course the obvious solution is to take maybe a piece of paper or some electrical tape, perhaps, and just cover up the sensor so that it runs on its lowest brightness setting all the time. The last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to flip the unit around and turn the alarm on, and we'll have a listen to the alarm. But we'll look at something else as well. You may have noted it earlier. Watch what happens when I go to the alarm. What? 1280? What's that? We'll have a little demonstration of the alarm, or the setting functionality as well. What? Yeah, we got a stuck segment, and it was not like that when it was in the store. So I don't know what happened on the way home. Just that maybe there's a connection that's loose or something like that. I'm going to have to figure out what the deal is. Or maybe I won't care, because I don't really care. Still works, though. Let's go ahead and set the alarm off. I'm going to set the alarm first. Or maybe I won't, because it'll go off for all of you. Very loud, and at 3:30 in the morning, I'm sure that made me a lot of friends. And that is pretty much it for the Citizen JC-11 alarm clock with vacuum fluorescent display, electronic dimmer, fast time set, and a very interesting design. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below. And this is CP666 signing off, and I hope to see you next time. Till then.